Here is Al Franken showing that despite the fact that Betsy DeVos thinks that she would be sitting in that seat even if she wasn't a multi-billionaire, even if she hadn't given hundreds of millions of dollars to Republican Party officials. Here is Al Franken illustrating to us, and I guess her, that she doesn't know one of the, what my understanding is, bedrock debates within education, particularly over the past 12 or 15 years, because we have had these high stakes testing, which are supposed to measure students' achievement and then use that as a way of hiring and firing and funding schools. And so it's an important debate as to how you measure, what metric you use to determine whether or not a student is learning. And here's Al Franken finding out that Betsy DeVos is not aware of this debate. And I should add, doesn't seem to know the terms.
And this brings me to the issue of proficiency, which the Senator cited, versus growth. And I would like your views on the relative advantage of measuring, doing assessments and using them to measure proficiency or to measure growth.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I think if I'm understanding your question correctly around proficiency, I would also correlate it to competency and mastery, so that each student is measured according to the advancement that they're making in each subject area.
Well, that's growth. That's not proficiency. So in other words, the growth they're making is in growth. The proficiency is an arbitrary standard.
If they've reached a level, the proficiency is if they've reached a like third grade level for reading, et cetera.
No, I'm talking about the debate between proficiency and growth.
Yes.
And what your thoughts are on them.
Well, I was just asking to clarify then.
Well, this is a subject that has been debated in the education community for years. And I've advocated growth, as the chairman and every member of this committee knows, because with proficiency, teachers ignore the kids at the top who are not going to fall below proficiency, and they ignore the kid at the bottom who, no matter what they do, will never get to proficiency. So I've been an advocate of growth. But it surprises me that you don't know this issue. And, Mr. Chairman, I think this is a good reason for us to have more questions, because this is a very important subject, education, our kids' education. And I think we're selling our kids short by not being able to have a debate on it. And I didn't know of any rule about this, everyone gets one question and one other senator gets a question. I don't know where that rule comes from.
Well, I'll tell you where it comes from, Senator Franken. It comes from the committee precedent and the way we treated President Obama's nominees, John King, and the way we treated Arnie Duncan, and the way I was treated when I was a secretary.
But
I'm
all
going
of
to
us
apply,
have more
I'm applying the
questions.
same rules to them, to Secretary DeVos, or to Mrs. DeVos.
Well, I think we're selling our kids short by not being able to ask follow-up questions. And I was kind of surprised, well, I'm not that surprised, that you did not know this issue.
I mean, that's pretty damning. She doesn't even know what he's talking about. I mean, she's heard proficiency, but to have a Secretary of Education who comes in without even, I mean, he's not even asking her to agree with his position on that question. She doesn't even realize it's a question. Because really, for Betsy DeVos, the record is clear. And I have the quote here, I think what it is. this is the problem with what is going on. According to a 2001 interview for The Gathering, this is a group focused on advancing Christian faith through philanthropy. She and her husband offered a view of reviews. Asked whether Christian schools should continue to rely on philanthropic dollars rather than pushing for taxpayer money through vouchers. Betsy DeVos replied, "There are not enough philanthropic dollars in America to fund what is currently the need in education versus what is currently being spent every year in education in this country." In other words, the public funding. Our desire is to confront the culture in ways that will continue to advance God's kingdom. So, why should you give a crap about should we measure kids based upon a standard that is set for each specific grade? Or should we measure kids' learning based upon where they were when they entered the grade and where they were when they exited the grade? Growth versus proficiency. There's a debate as to which is better. She's not even aware there's a debate because God apparently didn't mention it to her. Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.